going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of JaAR. JaAR, for those of you that may be new, stands for Joe
and Amy
Review, and this is our weekly show where we review the Magic stories. And this week we are continuing to review or go through the Innistrad Midnight Hunt stories. And so this week we are here for side story number 3, His Eyes, All of Them, by Margaret Killjoy. My quick review at the top of this one is that this is one where if for some reason you're like, oh man, I want to read as many of these stories as I can, but I don't have time for all of them, this one would be one that you definitely could skip, in my opinion. I don't think it was, I don't know. I don't want to say that it was bad, but it felt very unnecessary, is what I will say, personally. Amy, what about you?
I'm nodding a lot because I don't want to say it was bad.
Well, because I don't think it was like we've had problems with stories in the past where we're like, there were continuity issues, like why was it written this way, and like this didn't make any sense, and I would argue that none of that was here.
Yeah, but that's because you couldn't care enough about it to make any critiques like that. And it was just so whatever. We'll talk
more about that as we go through, but it was yeah, very very forgettable, I feel like, and very like I said, very skippable if that's something that you're looking for. But on the off chance that you still would like, based on our quick review, if you don't want to, that's just our opinion, and we would love to hear yours as well, whether you have already read it or whether you want to, based on that review, you still want to go read it and decide for yourself. We want to hear from you regardless. Yes. And so if you would like to go read that story and you have not done so already, we try to remove as many barriers as possible for you. So what we have done for you is the top link in the description down below will take you to this story so that you can read it for yourself. And then, of course, as always, we would love it if you would come back here and join us for the rest or the entirety of this review. So, as I said, you can give us your opinions, as always, down in the comments below.
I do want to mention, since you said that, even though you do say that in every one of these, I do want to mention that in case you're a new reader of the story and you've been getting those links from our videos, do know that sometimes it's rather difficult to find these stories. So it is actually us helping by putting it in the description.
Right. Sometimes it's...
I just feel like people might listen to us say that and be like, well, yeah, so who cares, but sometimes they're not easy to find.
It's true. And even if it's years later and the website is bugged, as it was for our Battle for Zendikar Oath of the Gatewatch stories, you could just go to our video if you want to try to find the link and just follow the link. Because the link still worked, but the file path on their website to get there didn't. That's a whole nother story for different videos. But like Amy said, our video would have been a way to get you there regardless. So, but yeah, so before we move on to the full review itself, just a moment, as we remind you, hi, welcome to the channel. Thank you so much for being here. Please don't forget while you're here to subscribe and ring that bell so that you will get notifications whenever any of our videos come out, including the continuation of the story reviews next week, etc. But also, whenever we go live on this channel, which is every Monday and Friday, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on this channel. Mondays for MTG Arena and Fridays for video games in general. This past Friday, we were not here because I had some other things to do. Actually, now I can say. I was always trying to keep it quiet because it was somewhat of a surprise, but I went to a bachelor party for a friend of mine, and this weekend is the wedding that related to that bachelor party. So what we have done is, just so that we're not away from you for 2 weeks in a row, especially as we go through our spooky month of streams where we're playing through Outlast on our streams on Fridays, we decided that instead we would have a stream Thursday. Instead, still from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern. If you're subscribed and you have the bell rung, you would get notifications regardless, by the way. But just as a reminder, if you're watching this video on the day that it comes out, then tonight at 8 p.m. we will be live continuing our playthrough of Outlast. And if you're watching it the week after, hey, it'll be back to Fridays, so we hope that you'll join us regardless.
And you can watch the VOD.
On Video Games for All, which along with Gluten Free for All, stay tuned to both of those. Links down in the description box below. Those are our other channels as of today. So you should definitely go check those out and sub and ring the bells there as well. So,
or you can check out the channels tab by that you would come to by going to Geek for All. You can just like go to Geek for All and there's a channels tab, and then you click on that and you can see what other channels we have.
There you go. And so, yes, on to the full review itself. We have a story that is arguably about old stick fingers. It's also about Vadric. We meet, of other named characters, we meet Rem Carolus, named legendary cards or creatures from the set. We meet Vadric, we meet Rem Carolus. I commented on the fact, or I wrote down the fact that I thought it was interesting that we have Vadric as a legendary creature right after the set that rotated in Ikoria, where you had Vadrock as a legendary character.
Right?
Like, it's literally spelled the same way, you just replace the O with an I.
So in other words, you mix them up.
I mean, yeah, kinda. So I guess I apologize if at any point I say Vadrock, but regardless, why so close together? Why?
So stupid.
Why? It's just one letter different. Anyway. But yes, the whole story is they're going to Lamholt, or Vadric is going to Lamholt. He was called there by the Council of Crones and Mothers. Now, Amy correctly was like, what are Crones? Besides, bowel disorder. And so we...
I didn't say that part.
No, I said that. But we looked it up, and a crone is like an old, ugly woman.
So, when naming a council, don't.
They're really
Just
exclusive.
don't.
They're really exclusive about how you get in. It's like, are you old? Do you have like liver spots and like all that other stuff? You're in.
You have
Come on
to be
in.
skinny as well. In order to be a crone, we've learned. You have to be like emaciated and ugly and old.
Yeah. So yeah, this was
So ridiculous.
this story. One thing that I want to talk about is we meet Rem Carolus. Now, the art for Rem Carolus is there. It's a dude riding like a hippogriff or whatever the hell they're called, right? Like a big crane type of a creature. Maybe the point of the story is to show you more what he's like, because looking at the art, I would never have assumed that Rem was the way that he was characterized. He's just a knight riding on the back of like a crane, like a big crane. So
Not a crane like a machine, but
a bird crane, yes. So like, how is his character like arrogant knight who runs into the fray and like no matter what, like to the detriment of himself at any given moment?
They should do like a Bob the Builder secret lair.
What? What?
With cranes and cement mixers and... It was a joke.
You okay? Oh, wow. I would like to just say the views of Amy do not necessarily... No, just kidding. I'm kidding. That's it.
They're not doing that.
Good.
Or at least I would assume they're not doing that. But hey, they've done,
Again, Bob the Builder caters to a particular demographic of child, and Magic the Gathering specifically states that it caters to 13+. So no, I doubt we're going to be getting like Bob the Builder or Blue's Clues or whatever secret layers anytime soon. Blippy. There you go. No. Anyway, so I didn't think that the way that Rem Carolus was written made any sense. Although, to be completely fair, and maybe people can let me know in the comments down below, Rem Carolus and Vadrik, are they cards that like people are using in Commander, and so it's something that I'm not as aware of or as prevalent for me? Because to me, like, these two characters came up and I was like, oh, it's these two? Like, who the hell cares? But that's me. I understand that it may be different for other people. If they saw Vadrik and they were like, you know what, this is an is-it color creature, and I have a particular deck that this would go super well in. Maybe it replaces a commander in a commander deck of yours, whatever the case may be. Same with Rem Carolus, right? Rem is Boros, I believe. So maybe that's something where you're like, I'm super excited for these two characters. I want them in my decks. And so because of that, I want to know what they're like so that I know, like, you know, the Boros creature does, in fact, run in outside of his own safety or whatever. I guess that makes sense. But to me, reading or looking at the card for Rem Carolus and then reading about him, they seem so counter to what I would have thought Rem was looking at the card.
Okay.
Maybe I'm wrong. As always, if you agree, disagree, let us know your thoughts down below. But that seemed counter to where my head was going.
Okay. I guess that makes sense, but I didn't think of it.
We talked 2 weeks ago, which was the last time we reviewed a side story. We talked 2 weeks ago about the last story, Sisters, where we learned about some of the witches and things like that. We met Sarith, the Viper's Fang, and everything. And I mentioned the fact that it really seemed like a horror movie. From start to finish, it had all the different requisite parts. And I think I see the bones of that, no pun intended, but I think I see the bones of that being attempted with this story as well. That you have the introduction of, hey, you're coming here to help. Well, by the way, there's these people going missing, and you may have a connection to this town, but here's the guy that you're going to team up and work with. And there's this old wives' tale or nursery rhyme about old stick fingers, and you know, everybody's afraid of him, but he's the boogeyman. He's not real, right? And then the next thing you know, they meet the boogeyman, and he is real, and they fight him, and they're gonna lose, they start succeeding, and then he disappears. And so then you go back and you're like, oh, well, here's where he was summoned, right? You do some investigating. You find out where he was summoned, and I wrote here, for something that you were talking about, Vadrik pours a vial of Stickfinger's blood on the wooden mobile that was hanging by Arenos and Arios's house, and he pours the blood on it and then stomps on it. And it's broken, and you hear her yell, and they're like, well, Stickfingers is clearly defeated now.
I was like, nah.
Nope.
What the hell?
Nope. Because there was a fair amount left in the story as well, so you could metagame it a little bit, but also, really, that would be the end of old Stickfingers? And so you're like, okay, it was a tough...
like the shittiest of voodoo dolls right there.
Yeah. It's like, okay, so it was a tough fight. We almost died, but we defeated it, but it went away. But now we've definitely gotten rid of it. Don't worry about it. It's definitely not coming back ever again.
I was confused as to why they were trying to get rid of it in the first place. Stickfingers was like the only character in this story I actually gave a damn about.
Well, yes.
All the rest of them are stupid and deserve to die.
And so that's the twist, though, right? Is that old Stickfingers was summoned to help, not to hurt. It's just that because of some crossed wires or some miscommunication, the sacrifice or the gift that was put out for old Stickfingers was stolen. And so old Stickfingers killed the person who stole the gift and killed the person who summoned him in the first place. And so, you know, it was just a misunderstanding. And Stickfingers was actually fine and was summoned to help instead.
Right. And he was great and everybody else was terrible.
And so...
and like, during that part, I was like, was it that part, or was it later on where he was like, well, we made sure that he would be, like, banished back to wherever he came from, and it's like,
Yeah, that was
how do
later
you
on,
know
I think,
he didn't come from here, dude?
Yeah. And sure
Why
enough...
are you just assuming that?
And sure enough, he did come from there. He was a hearth spirit who was summoned or whatever, but yes, absolutely. And so another thing where Amy was like, come on now.
Yeah.
And so then, like, again, you already have the swerve of he was meant as a protector, right? He was brought there as a protector. And then now they're trying to summon him again and put him back to protecting again, protecting the house. And so they attempt to do it by, again, trying to gift him another goat. And he shows up, Stickfinger shows up, and the goat's there. And the story leads you to believe he's going to murder this goat. Does he murder the goat? No. He, like, pets it and takes it away. And then, as he's taking it away, the other goat that he supposedly killed, or that got taken or whatever, was also there. So he just had goats. He just had pet goats now that were hanging out with him that seemed like they were enjoying themselves. It's like everything.
Anticlimactic.
Well, not even that, but
weird.
just everything that they thought they knew about him was wrong. Just wrong. You were wrong about all of it.
They were idiots.
And then it ends...
arrogant as hell for no reason. Like, they had no clue what they were doing.
And then it just ends with, as horror stories tend to do, so that there's, like, the possibility of a sequel, right? It ends with, like, the, like, vague musings that Vadric is having as he's leaving, where he's like, what was up with that second bed? There was a second bed there. Why was there a second bed there? And there were green lights in the house right before we went to go fight old Stickfingers, but Ariosa was unharmed, so what was going on there? And so you're supposed to be able to be like, oh my god, like, does that mean that old Stickfingers was in the house with Ariosa? Does it mean that Ariosa is old Stickfingers? What does it mean? And then, hooray, we could have a sequel of some kind where we find out more about old Stickfingers.
But you don't care.
No.
They don't make you give a damn.
No.
Like, those questions are left unanswered, but they're not really asked. Does that make sense?
Sure. I also...
You don't ask them because you don't care about these characters enough. Like,
Yeah.
Stickfingers was cool. Like, some of the descriptions of Stickfingers, I was like, why do they call him Stickfingers? Why do they make all these assumptions about him? Like, he's awesome. And everything that they try to do to him is, like, so pointless and not gonna work because it's clearly, like, way more powerful than any of them.
I will say I enjoyed the description of the fight itself. I thought that was good. I could see it in my mind of what everything looked like. I liked the in-depth aspects of the fight that they went into. I liked the white mercury type of blood or moonlight blood that was coming out that, like, pooled like mercury. Awesome imagery. Loved that. I think that's really clever and interesting.
I was like, this entity is so beautiful. Why are you stupid, arrogant people showing up here to do anything about this?
Well, and you were even saying, like, he just was basically Slender Man, right? Except that he left hoarfrost and mushrooms wherever he stepped.
Which
like, everywhere he
was
stepped.
Awesome. Just, like, he's so cool.
Yeah.
And then these other people are like, we have the nerve to come here and try to kill him because...
Well, because he's part of scary nursery rhymes meant to scare children. And so to them, he's a threat, right? He's scary, he's going to steal people, he already has killed people, but it was because he was summoned for a purpose, and then that purpose got muddled up because the gift for him wasn't really there. And so, I don't know, But
even that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's like a weirdly... Like... It's like a story that's, like, missing a baseline of making sense.
Yeah, and, like, I had questions about, so I didn't enjoy Rem Carolus, right? Because it didn't make any sense to me. With Vadric talks at one point in the fight with Stickfingers, talks about how Stickfingers like yells when he's cut or something. And Vadric is able to like take the sound and draw it in as a spell and like shoot it back out or something.
That's cool.
And it said that he had only ever done that when he fought a creature from beyond the stars. Now, to me, when I read that, I was like, oh, so he fought something that was an Eldrazi.
Right.
Right? When Emrakul was around, or maybe he fought at Emrakul, but maybe it was one of the like mutated things that were being taken over by Emrakul. And distorted.
If you recall, Stickfingers' sound like echoed weirdly. Remember? Where it said that its voice was like echoey.
I don't exactly remember that, no, but
yeah.
Okay. But my point was, so Vadric took in the sound and shot it as he had done when he fought a creature from beyond the stars, which I assumed was one of the Eldrazi. But then later on, he uses magic. He pulls magic from the stars and uses it. So, is it part of his abilities that allowed him to fight something from beyond the stars?
Is he like a star mage guy?
or was it when he fought the Eldrazi and that's what they were getting at? Like, that was very unclear to me. Because at first I was like, oh, cool. That's a really cool allusion to, like, he was alive during the Eldrazi fight era, and he participated, and he ended up using that spell then. But then later on he's like, I draw the power of the stars in and use that. And it's like, so you don't... It wasn't against the Eldrazi. You just have the power of, like, drawing power from the stars, and, like, something came from there to fight you or something? I was very unclear. If you read it any differently, like if you think it was just, Joe, it's just the Eldrazi and then he drew power from the stars, don't worry about it. Or if like, it's two completely separate things, or if it's the same, I have no idea. But that was very odd to me. Because it made perfect sense that it was the Eldrazi, and then later on he just draws magic from the stars, and I'm like, okay. It just seemed very deliberate the way that they used that same phrasing twice. Anyway. And then the only other thing I wanted to talk about, which I actually thought was somewhat interesting, I don't know if they did it on purpose, but it was somewhat interesting. You'll note from and I struggled with what to do with this, our thumbnail for this video. I wanted it to be old Stickfingers. He looks so cool, etc., right? But instead, it's the picture of the novice occultist. Because for the story, that was the thumbnail picture that they used for it. As one of the arts in this story, was the novice occultist. While I don't agree with that, because at least in the story, it seemed like they were using the novice occultist art to represent Ariosa, which was the daughter of the guy who summoned and who was kind of a novice summoner, right? She knew the chants and what to do and everything.
But she didn't really. She was guessing.
But she was right. I mean, she did it perfectly correct. So,
yeah.
So that seemed to be what that picture was representing. She was in the latter half of the story at best,
right?
If not less than half. So you could have just had the picture of Vadric, since he was at least in the entire story. But I wanted it to be old Stickfingers, because again, to us, he seemed to be the most interesting.
Right. And they didn't like take her character and say like, oh, here's like all the cool intricacies about her, so that when she saves the day, like, that'll be cool.
Right.
They didn't do that.
Right. And so, but what I appreciated about the fact that they didn't use the picture of old Stickfingers, because it is a picture in the story, but they didn't use that as the thumbnail for the story. And why? Well, because in horror movies where there's a monster, you don't show the monster in the trailer. Or if you do, it's for like a second, and you like kind of see it in the shadow, or it's like a flash on screen of like its face coming at you or whatever. So to me that made sense, and that I thought was nice and flavorful.
Like laughing or something.
Right, exactly.
Instead. Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty flavorful, that it was like, you know, afterwards I'm sitting there going, why wouldn't they have it be old Stickfingers? He was so vitally a part of the story.
Right.
And then it was like, oh, because you don't show the monster, right? You just don't do that. Because then if people see the monster, why do they go see the movie? So, or why do you read the story to see what old Stickfingers looks like? So
because he's cool.
Yeah.
And the people are not.
Also, it was called His Eyes, All of Them, and like they at one point briefly. Well, they mentioned his eyes, right? It was more than two, and it was the green lights, and I guess they talk about it later on at the end because they allude to the fact that those green lights were in the house, and he was asking about the two beds, and the green lights were coming towards them in the field by the house. So I guess that's why it just, like, His Eyes, All of Them, I feel like is supposed to be like a really intimidating, scary title, and it's very much not.
Yeah, because then, like, it's not like his deal is that he sees all, right? It's not like his deal is that, like, he watches you while you sleep. You know, it's like, that's not his thing.
Right. It could be like if it was like his fingers long and pointy or something, like, you know, that kind of a thing. But his eyes, all of them, to me, it didn't have the desired effect of like, ooh, okay, I like that. No, it didn't. So I felt like a lot of this story was like almost there. Almost there. Like I can see what the attempt was of, like I said, the ending it with like, there's like the swerve of, this was the bad guy, let's fight him. Oh, we got rid of him. Oh, we didn't. We actually just set him free. Oh, he's actually not the bad guy, and he's actually good and helpful and useful, and let's try to have him come and help us and save us. And then at the end, like, wait, why was that place have two beds when the father was already dead, and the bed was already made, and was Stickfingers living in that house? Was Stickfinger this girl? Like, you know.
I think Stickfingers is the dad.
Okay. Like that Stickfingers, like, well, I tried to remember, we read this in like two parts, but I was trying to remember if they found the father's body. I mean, I assume they did, unless they just said he went missing. Because if he went missing, then yeah, Stickfingers could have taken over the father's body and just, then the dad is Stickfingers now. But if they found his body, then I don't buy that as much, but maybe.
Whatever. I don't even care. Like, I'm not going to sit here and theorize about what this story means.
But I want to know...
I just don't care.
But I want to know what other people think, right? If you read this story and you were like, wow, this is awesome, I want to know. Not because I want to be like, well, you're wrong. Like, that's never what we're looking to do. But I want to know from you why. And again, as I've said in the past, I in no way would call myself a horror movie fan or fanatic or anything like that. I have watched horror movies. I don't go out of my way to see them. If they seem somewhat interesting, I will watch them. Or if they are available free online, like on a streaming service that I have, and I have nothing better to do, maybe I'll watch one. I play scary games on occasion, but I definitely don't seek them out. So, like, I'm not the target audience for horror stories or horror movies. But if you are, and you read this story and you were like, yes, this is what I'm here for, then I want to know about it. Let me know, let us know that you did enjoy the story. Maybe it's just that it's not our cup of tea, and we can absolutely accept that, right? As many Magic fans have had to learn over these last few years, not everything that Magic makes, even if you are a fan of Magic, is going to necessarily be for you. And sometimes that's okay. And sometimes we have to be okay with that. And I think, arguably, that's something I'm still learning and still kind of coming to terms with, depending on the day. But that aspect of it makes sense to me. So,
yeah, I mean, for me, I would like to think I am the audience for something like this.
Sure.
But I don't like this because I don't think it's good. I like supernatural stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I like scary stuff. I don't like cheap.
Sure.
Cheap jump scares and then disjointed characterizations and plot points. Get your shit together. That's me.
Okay. Well, and interestingly enough, I mean, maybe that's why I said maybe it is for you, and maybe you should let us know that it was for you. You did enjoy it, whatever the case may be. So,
maybe this was just a Halloween story for Halloween. It doesn't have to like make sense or
Well, and I was gonna say, don't
be like Magic the Gathering particularly oriented or be like something that's like super canon, you know, like things that people are gonna remember into the future and like want to keep continuity for and stuff. And you know, maybe it's not something that you know, it's definitely not something that followed my trauma through line that I've been, you know, pretty steadily keeping on with these stories and trying to give analysis of them. It's just kind of an outlier, and maybe, like you said, maybe that's okay sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, like I said, I don't think the writing was bad. I think that's somewhat unique in stories that we read where we're like I don't know, it seemed inconsistent to me. It seemed like it never really grabbed us and gave us something interesting to latch onto. So maybe you'd argue that that does mean it's bad writing. I don't know. I
would.
Fair enough.
But again, that's me.
Yeah.
If you guys don't think so, leave it in the comments because we want to hear about it.
We do, yeah. And so, hey, next week we will be back with main story number 4. We're getting towards the end of these, but not exactly. We've got some time still, because we have main story 4, side story 4, main story 5, side story 5. So we've still got 4 more weeks of this coming, so definitely stay tuned. Again, subscribing and ringing that bell is very helpful to you. We obviously appreciate it, and thank you all who have already done that, if we haven't thanked you for it already. But
we appreciate it.
Yes, and it would be super helpful to you as well, so that you make sure that you do not miss out on a single episode. Like, I think our Monday video this week, right? I think it went out like an hour and a half later than it usually does. If you have that bell rung, you will get the notifications for that video, especially because we give away codes to MTG Arena in all those Monday pre-release pack openings. So if you need a code, you gotta have that bell rung. And I didn't do that to like catch somebody. It was because we were in the middle of doing other things and I missed the deadline. So I do apologize for that, but also if you have that bell rung, you'll get that notification. So thank you for sticking it out with us. We really do appreciate it. Please do not forget to do all that other fun YouTube stuff as well. Don't forget, you can always like the videos, the thumbs up button down below. We would appreciate that. As always, we want to know your opinions. Super, super important. Check out our other channels down in the description box below. And if you know someone who would like these stories or who would like these reviews, share it with them. That helps immensely. Check out our socials, also linked down below. Just all the links that you might need down in the description box. But hey, joining us in reading these stories and giving your opinions on these stories, even when we don't exactly love them, and even if you don't exactly love them, is still a great way for all of us to come together and show off our...
#Vorthos Pride.
That's right, because we still love the stories in general. We still love the lore of Magic the Gathering, even if this story was like, no thank you, right? We read it, we reviewed it, and we are glad that you joined us, so thank you so much for being here. And so, for now, from us here at the Geek for All family of channels, I have been Joe.
And I'm Amy.
And as we always say, in whichever video of ours you watch next, we will see you all next time. Thanks, everybody.